I'll tell you right now, the muzzle nut's crazy loud. Alright guys, welcome back to Triple F Shooting. We picked a horrible freaking day to come out here and freeze for you to show you a PSA GF5 Romanian Underfolder. That is a mouthful, but you can see I have my ridiculous window cut mag. I ordered some Romanian mags and they were dented, so I fixed it, sort of. But what we're going to do today is put this through a few paces, run the Magwell drill that we've been doing with everything else, and see if the old jawbuster kind of low-angled folding stock is worth the crap to run in any kind of practical scenario. So here we go. Okay, so not god awful. Through my head's pretty bad. I'm not disappointed too bad with that, considering iron sights. One thing that you cannot get on this gun is a solid cheek weld. You're always kind of floating around your jawline, so those sights are not terribly consistent when they come up, so it's taking me just a hair longer. But there's no way to mount side rail optics on this guy, so if you're going to do something, you're going to have to go off of your rear sight leaf or an Ultimac or something like that. But most people aren't buying this thing because they want to throw optics all over it. They're buying it because it looks like that, so I'm going to leave it alone. All right, let's back up and start over.
The Russian way.
Magazine this tool. Okay. Hey guys, welcome back to Triple F Shooting. Today we will be looking at the PSA GF5 Romanian Underfolder kit. That is a mouthful, but essentially what you have is a Romanian MD65 underfolder. So you press the button and swing out the stock. You will notice right off the bat, probably in the shooting, if you've ever looked into underfolders before, there's a couple different styles. You have more of a Polish style where you get a straight line off the back of the receiver, and you have the Chinese or Romanian style where it comes down at a bit of an angle. We'll get into what makes that good and bad as we go through the review, but this is the one from Palmetto State Armory. They actually do purchase Romanian parts kits and put them together on their receivers with a different barrel. And we'll get into that in more detail as we go along. But the easiest way to do this, at least to start, is just going to go from the muzzle to the back of the stock. So that's what we'll do. When you get this thing in, it's just generally, and I think it differs based on the parts kit, but mine came with a muzzle nut. Now that does nothing more than protect the threads, similar to getting a threaded pistol barrel and you just have your muzzle nut on there to keep the threads from getting all dinged up. This does absolutely nothing for flash suppression or recoil. You just have a naked barrel and you can really see some fireballs coming off of this thing. I'll tell you right now, the muzzle nut's crazy loud. And it does have a little bit of a hinge to it with this low angle folding stock. Another thing with it, with the fireballs, you do have more recoil. When you don't have any form of muzzle device at all, you do get more perceived recoil, a little bit more muzzle flip. There is nothing to be pushing. Well, no gases are coming out at certain angles to counteract your general muzzle flip on this thing. So we kind of messed around a little bit and did some back and forth with this and a standard 45-degree sugar scoop, whatever you want to call it, but this is what you see on most basic AKMs. Actually works, and we'll get into that in the shooting portion. But
I sort of cheated. I slowed down to the point where I think I floated that step for about 3 shots. But you can obviously see that throwing the stupid sugar scoop brake on there tightened me up quite a bit compared to, granted, like 3 or 4 of these are that underfolder bullcrap type of shooting, so disregard, but things tighten up a little bit and with more movement from side to side, so looks cool, or at least it looks, you know, authentic, and it still does the job. So neato, gang.
But getting further back, you have a standard front sight block. Mine from the factory needed very little adjustment, and it is very centered up, or at least for the most part. Mine sits just a hair to the left of center to get a decent sight picture, but nothing out of whack. I've had some AKs where that post is barely in that U shape at all. So this one was pretty nice. You do get a cleaning rod on this rifle. From Palmetto, that is not always the case. I'm not sure why they don't do that. These are literally around $10. That being said, it's very easy to get your own, but GF5s actually come with a cleaning rod. Now, one of the super important parts of the GF5 is the barrel. This actually has an FN cold hammer forged chrome lined barrel in it. This is probably most of the expense of the rifle, if we're being honest. I don't know how they source these and still get this rifle in at the price that they do, but very cool. I will say it's probably more than I will ever need on something like this with iron sights, but I do know this barrel is probably going to outlast the rest of the gun. So very cool that PSA does that. If you are picky about collector kind of or just clone copy visuals, you do have a roll mark on the top of the barrel with the FN symbol and all of the information about the barrel. So if you're super picky about what that looks like, it is kind of right there on top. Most people are going to wear that like a badge of honor, but for me it is sort of out in the open and maybe not where I would want it, but I'm not going to complain too bad. You have a traditional 45-degree, you have an older style 45-degree gas block, no ports in your gas tube because it is a Romanian build. You have your standard sling loop mounted to your handguard retainer, and then we get into the part that makes this very Romanian, the wood furniture. This is a surplus kit, so this is darker and a little bit dinged up, which is, I think it's very cool. It has a lot of character, and you will notice I have this odd shaped foregrip. Now, almost everybody refers to this thing as a Romanian dong grip. You can guess why, but this one is a reverse dong, as we'll show in the video, because it is canted backward. Most of these actually curve forward to give you a little bit more to hang on to, but this one has to curve backward so that my stock can still fold and get around the thing. So that is why Romanian MD65 underfolders have a reverse dong and not a forward dong.
Alright guys, so one thing about having the Romanian underfolder is I have this lovely reverse dong. That's hard to say and keep a straight face, but we're doing good so far. The problem with having reverse dong is that when I go to reload, I run into dong because it's just that, you know, protrudent. So one thing you have to focus on when you reload an AK like this is actually pull down while you're coming out. So your cool guy, fast mag, you know, smacking it out of the way reloads don't work super great with the dong in the way. But the dong is great for recoil management. Oh yeah.
Moving on back, you have your rear sight block. With your standard iron sight setup on your leaf spring, this one is out to a optimistic 1,000 meters, and your standard slide, mine is currently set all the way back for the Battle Zero. We can get into that a little bit in the future, but don't want to get too deep right now on everybody. You do have Romanian trunnion on this thing. I will throw in pictures of the trunnion so you can actually see it, but for most people that's going to be a huge bonus. A lot of American AKs have sort of a stigma around them that the trunnions aren't very good. Palmetto State Armory, when they first started out, had a few issues that they have pretty well fixed by now with their GF3s, but this one actually has a full bore Romanian trunnion. This one is 1979, so pretty cool. Now we get into the Palmetto State Armory receiver. So they are making the receiver on this thing, and I will say, I'll throw in pictures, but all of the rivets look very nice. There is no dimpling where they've been over pressed. There's no puckering. You can't see under any of them. They're all very nice and round. No hammer-headed kind of dents on them or anything like that. And you do have your magazine well dimple on there for strength. I don't really think that has a whole lot to do with the magazine other than it gives strength right there at that point of the receiver, because this is a standard thickness at 1 millimeter. You do have a Palmetto marking, but it is kindly thrown underneath. On some of their GF3s you have the big giant cannon emblem kind of on the side of the receiver where it's very visible. They didn't do that on this. The only thing that they did on the side of the receiver, and again I'll throw in pictures, is put this GF5R, which is just their basically the grade of firearm, and the R is for Romanian. So you have your standard X and Y stamping, so everything looks very cool. For your trigger pins, this is unfortunately not a 3-pin gun, but I'll get over it. They did mark the receiver as if it still has full auto. So very cool there that they did the markings just to kind of match up if you're looking for more of a clone type build. You have a ribbed top cover. All the internals look very clean. I'm not going to break them all down and do like the in-depth pictures of everything. So far the wear is just fine. I don't have a ton of peening on the back of the bolt carrier or anything like that, so working out pretty well so far. The trigger on this thing is pretty nice from the factory. They are going to come with your ALG trigger. I don't remember if there are multiple versions of it. I think this is the baseline version of the ALG trigger. If I remember right, there's 2 different ones, but this is the baseline. Works very well. I have felt better AK triggers, like a CMC trigger or something like that, where it's kind of tunable. That's what we have in the 1RPK, and it's just silly. You can run very quickly with that. This is better than a lot of your typical, you know, there's no trigger slap, anything like that. It works. You have your standard safety. You do not have any enhanced finger ledges or anything like that, but it did come from the factory tuned pretty well. I didn't have to crank on the thing at all to get it set correctly. And then we get back to the end of the trunnion where you have your folding stock. So the folder is extremely rigid on this. I have no wobble. I have a hair of up and down on that lock mechanism, but I have no side to side, nothing uncomfortable, or at least confidence deleting. It feels very solid. It's nice and tight on the swing, but it's not so tight that I'm, you know, having to hold the thing between my legs and crank it over or anything like that. I did forget to mention it will come with the same parts kit grip. I actually exchanged it out for a darker Polish grip, and that is because the Polish grips are a little bit fatter, so you actually gain a little bit of purchase for your hand. It feels better than your standard AKM or Romanian grip, and still looks the part. And this one even color matches really well if you're like me and worried about it. But the stock itself, just because it's Romanian, this is probably not going to show up. I'll throw in the shooting video here, but it is notched out to get around the safety, which is sort of hilarious because in order to get the safety off on this thing around the folding stock, you have to like pinky wedge the thing. You can get it kind of halfway, and then you have to like reach through and get it off. So not a viable solution. I actually do a little bit of a shooting test to show maybe what I would do if I was really going to walk around with this folded up. I don't think I would ever walk around with it folded up. This is literally just so it's easier to transport. Probably not going to walk around with it in the folded position because it served me no great purpose. But we'll show you that video anyway.
Alright guys, so one cool thing about underfolders is it's folded. You always see movies where guys are standing around with it slung up. You can actually see the thing is meant to be run with the stock in. It actually has a cutout to get that safety on. Now that is dubious at best to kind of push. So not great. So if I were to be walking around like that, right now the gun is unloaded. Do something with this, but gun's not loaded, which if I were on some form of duty, that's probably how I would run, with the safety off, no round in it, and just rack my gun when I need it rather than try to run the safety. So what I'm going to do is just go cool guy 80s movie guard duty with my gun just standing around, and target's right there. He's going to get all hot and bothered, and I'm going to engage, but I don't have time to fling my stock out, so we're going to try it like this and see if it's any good. I'll throw a picture up there of what the target looks like now and attempt to track where these rounds go for you, but no problem. Alright, so I'm waiting around. Here comes some dude up to my checkpoint. He looks a little suspicious. I'm a little bit keyed up, not sure what's going to happen. And then he beeps at me. That wasn't terrible. They're actually kind of on paper. So I watched 2 of these hit low, but then 2 of them are somewhere in here. I have to like draw little circles on them from the stills. But huge muzzle flash off this muzzle nut, so kind of ridiculous. Let's go back.
Okay, the very last thing I have installed, I shouldn't say installed, I have clipped on, because that's about all it takes, an original Romanian leather sling. This one's fairly new. It looks like it's barely been used at all, so it's extremely stiff. That actually is a bit of a hindrance right now, but with use it will soften up. So that takes us through all of the just general junk about a PSA GF5R for Romanian. Now, one thing people tend to worry about with any AK, I should say a couple things here, is the sight alignment, which we've already kind of gone over. These sights are very clean. I didn't have any issues sighting in. Everything's nice and straight. There's no cant really here to worry about, so huge plus. That can be a deal breaker on any AK. If the front sight is canted out of whack, it can make it so you can't hit much of anything, which is no fun. The other thing is the Magwell. Does it wobble all over the place with different magazines? So what we'll do very quickly, and I'll probably just speed up a lot of this footage, I'm going to put a whole bunch of different freaking mags in it that I have just to see what's up. Typically, because I am the nerd I am, I only really run Romanian mags in this because it just looks better, and it is a Romanian gun. But I have a plethora of mags over here in a big pile, so we're probably just going to like speed through all this, and I will show you if all these different mags fit. So, first one we're going to start with is a Korean fake Bakelite. It does have metal locking lugs, but this is literally a cheapo version of a fancy Bakelite. It doesn't really look all that great, is what it is. She was tight, so there's almost no wobble, but I think I actually peeled a little bit of polymer going in just to get the thing in there. This is actually the mag that it ships with. This is just a mag pull mag. They ship it with a 20 rounder because of the reloads, which we'll get, you'll have seen by now. Goes in just fine. Very little to no real wobble. Nothing to worry about. I have a Bulgarian polymer mag with steel locking lugs on the front and rear. That one goes in really nice. Less wobble even there. No front to back. I have a real Russian Bakelite. That one goes in and looks really sick. This one's actually got quite a bit more wobble, and that's probably just more due to the mag than the gun, but it does. I have a Korean steel mag. Oh, I did it. I did the thing. This one does get tight at the backside, but again, no wobble. Tight's better than loose. A Yugoslavian. That one fits really well. I have a newer production Bulgarian steel mag. Nothing there. And last but not least, I have a Romanian mag. No issues there. So this is a Romanian 75 round top loading drum. And if I remember right, it's fairly tight. The dong's actually sort of in the way. Yeah, this guy's tight. Okay, because this thing is so expensive, I've actually never put this in here because you can't even close the stock around a drum. So, I mean, you can run it, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to. That thing's really tight, and I'm not going to grind on either the gun or the mag to make that fit, because it fits really well in the RPK. We're going to leave it alone. Last thing I have is I believe this one's Romanian. I have a Romanian and a Korean. Yeah, this is the Romanian rear loading drum, which is easier to load because of the straight profile. That one has a decent amount of wobble, but it does go into the gun. Considerable weight addition, but again, can't even run the stock. Obviously, that's not going to fly. So, don't know why you would do that. I suppose you could have it all the way folded and put the drum in. Don't know why you would do that, but if you really want to, it's doable. Okay, I'm tired of holding that up. Now, just like in the video, you may have noticed that some of the mags, as I'm trying to put them in and out, are running into my foregrip. That is one issue with this. Just like in the video, you can see I can't do like the cool guy fast mag slap outs or anything like that. I do really have to focus on pulling the mag. You know, I have to rock the mag, but I have to focus on pulling it down and not just rocking it out and throwing the thing. So that's one thing you're going to run into with any of the Romanian foregrips. They're just sort of in the way. Even if you have like a really cool Alpha AK or something like that with rails and all that, you tend to go with a very stubby foregrip so that you're not in the way of your mag changes. Just something to be aware of. But okay, so that's all the just junk about the gun. How does it shoot? Again, trigger's very nice. Safety was tuned right out the bat. One thing about this angled stock is that I end up with a chin weld on the gun rather than a cheek weld. That's not so bad for like kind of a head upright position, but what that does is creates an issue of I'm not terribly consistent with where I land on this thing, and then I'm kind of searching for my irons. So one thing I forgot to mention with up close shooting, because we did the Magwell drill like we do with pretty much all the rifles, because it's kind of a nice baseline just to run different stuff against and you get somewhat of a comparison. When you get nice and close, 15 yards and in, and you're going really fast, because you can't get a consistent chin weld or cheek weld on this thing, and it makes finding your sights a little bit slower, especially with irons. One thing that you can do is sort of just look over the top of your rear sight and use the entirety of that front sight. So you're just kind of looking over everything and seeing that big U-cup in your front post. Pretty much just kind of making an EOTech visual profile where I'm just putting that big U and post on my target to get hits when I'm that close. It works pretty well if you need to get very precise shots. Obviously, you got to focus on your height over bore, and you're going to want to drop down to your iron sights. But if you're looking for a upper torso solid hit at speed, you really can just sort of look over for the big picture, get a gross picture, and send the round, and it very reliably puts it right where you think it's going to go. So something to be aware of with that stock angle, not being able to get a cheek weld. If you really had to, you can push this thing without upgraded optics to do well in close quarters at speed. So something to think about. Is what it is. One thing it doesn't do, like a lot of the straight profile underfolders, is it doesn't really beat the crap out of my face. A lot of straight line underfolders, like the Polish style, you're going to be down somewhere here where your cheek's really digging in, and that thing's just kind of bouncing around on your jawline or your cheekbone every round. It's not the worst thing ever. Obviously, people get over it and do it all the time, but it's not as much fun to shoot as a fixed stock. That's just the truth. If you really want an AK to shoot all the time and you want it to be fairly comfortable, get a fixed stock or put a M4 style stock on there if you want to commit just disgusting blasphemy. But underfolders look really cool, aren't as much fun to shoot. Another thing, because this has to get around the body of the gun, this is very wide. So when you shoulder the thing, it's taking up a pretty good deal of that shoulder pocket. So if you are running any kind of a chest rig that has big straps, armor, something like that, this is sort of uncomfortable to get around because it is so wide. It's kind of sliding around or pushing around. It is just smooth steel, not grippy. So you're dealing with stuff that was designed in the very late 40s, if not the early 50s. I'll have to look that up and throw the correct number in there. But this is old tech. It is what it is. When shooting, because of this angle and that muzzle nut, the gun tends to actually rise and flip in your shoulder. The lower the stock point to the bore, the more of that you're going to feel. Because this gun is mostly for looks for me and kind of a historical piece, it's cool to have something that's older that I can run at the range and kind of compare it to other things and drills. I'm not going to mess with it much more than putting on, you know, a regular old sugar scoop brake. If you go to like a 74 style brake or any of the other like JMac brakes or anything like that, you can get a serious amount of recoil reduction and a lot of extra noise. But you can do whatever you want to it. I'm going to leave it pretty much as stock as I can because I really, really enjoy the feel of it and getting to experience, you know, the older tech. But all in all, kind of final point, this thing is very cool. I'm very happy with it. I've had no issues yet. Probably have around 1,000 rounds through it so far, and everything's looking really good. Don't have any issues at all. I think somewhere in the shooting video I mentioned that I would like it a little bit to have a battle-worn finish because it comes to you with like a fresh coat of Cerakote. I believe it's just a black Cerakote, and it causes everything to look like very new compared to your sort of beat-up charactered wood. I enjoy the idea of just getting my own battle-worn finish on it just from use. I don't really want to like rub all the high spots down. Sometimes you see kits come in that are just like shiny around certain spots where you can tell someone just like went at it with Scotch-Brite or something. Don't really want it to look fake. I'm just going to use the thing. So far, its use is pretty awesome. But that's all I have for right now on the PSA GF5R or Romanian Underfolder. Thanks for watching Triple F Shooting, and we'll see you in the next video.